Hi, my name is Chris Lemcke, and I'm here to talk about design, which I know very little about, but I am learning to care more and more about it. So I'm here to talk about why design is crap, and you still need to know it. But I'm a programmer, you say. I'm not a designer. I just write code. Other people do the presentation. That's not true. Design is part of the job. So I'm going to tell you a little my story and why I'm interested in this and why I'm doing a talk today. So my name is Chris Lemcke. I work here at YP. I work on the internal tools team. So what I work on is stuff like data metrics, dashboards, internal data management tools. Really dry, boring stuff that only other developers see. But what we get is we get requests for what data should be shown. But we don't get any PSDs. We have no idea how to display this data. We have to build this entire stuff from scratch. So what I've learned, and what I've learned to do, is to build, to try and make it look good. Because when you make your data look good, that makes your team look good, which makes your company look good, and everybody's happy when just your code looks good. So what I'm trying to get at is that as a developer, it's part of your responsibility. Just as much as learning public speaking and good time management, you have to make your code look good, and you have to make what you design look good. So let's go over the 4 basic principles. Remember, design is crap. Contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. So let's start with proximity. So proximity is related elements should be grouped together. A lot of us do this automatically, but you really want to do this consciously. So let's take a basic example. This is a terrible example of data, but this is exactly what you'll see from a lot of programmers. I mean, look at this is kind of what the terminal dump looks like when you get a stack trace. It's like you just get a big dump of text, and eventually you learn how to look through it, but it's really ugly and really hard to work with. Let's see what just a little bit of proximity will do to this. Boom. All I did was add return lines. Like, that's it. That's all I did. And it looks dramatically better. It's much easier to see where the different data is organized and what's separated. So the point of proximity is to group related elements together and space them apart to indicate differences in the data. So the second principle is alignment. Every item should have a visual connection to related items on the page. So in the same way that you should group related items together, you should align items. Everything on the page nothing should ever be put arbitrarily, just up, print out. Don't let your data just come out like a text and wrap around. Make sure it lines up with grid lines to everything you do on the page. So let's look at our example again and see how it improves with just a little bit of alignment. So here you can see I've just moved all the prices to the right, put some indents and a horizontal rule, and this dramatically improves how readable and how usable the data is. I mean, coming back to our stack trace example, if you can just see where the lines are that it breaks, and then all the other stuff's indented, that makes it a lot easier. So next is repetition. Repetition. Repeat some aspect of the design through the entire piece. With repetition, if items are similar, you want them to carry their similarity and reflect that graphically. So it's pretty straightforward, so we'll move on to the next one, which is repetition. Repeat some aspect of the design through the entire piece. So let's see an example of that. So in this case, all I did was just add a little line across, but you can see part of my point here is that repetition is something that we do naturally. Just make sure to emphasize it more. I mean, in this case, you already had the all caps for the titles and the dollar signs for the amounts. This is stuff that we naturally do. Just be more conscious of it, be aware of it, make an effort to do it well. And then the last principle, which is contrast. This is the flip side of repetition. Elements that are different, emphasize those differences and make sure that they're very different. Let's go to the example, but so we'll see here that, just small changes like this text here is very different. It shouldn't be the same font and the same size as the actual items. It's not part of the same items. Let's get rid of all caps. All caps is really hard to see. Just don't use it. It's better to bold it. It's better to give it a different font. Don't use all caps. And then don't be afraid to use some interesting stuff. I used a font that I downloaded from a site that I'll talk about later, just to give a splash. So I think we can see here the dramatic improvement from our original just dump of data to this menu. And I'm not a designer. I'm a programmer. I have no formal training, but I can make something that looks a lot better, that's a lot easier to visually parse, that your eyes will follow in a logical manner just by applying some simple concepts. So let's see what's next. So let's go to review. Crap. Contrast. Emphasize the difference between different items. If something has a different meaning or is in different categories, visually distinguish those. Repetition. If they're similar, visually make them similar. Alignment. Again, everything should be aligned logically with something else on the page. And then last of all, proximity. This one's something that really is just this one. If you only take one thing away from my talk today, it's proximity. Make data, just spread it out, give it some space. Don't just put it all on a page. Don't be afraid to use small text. It's still readable if you've got some good space between it. So design is crap, but have fun with it. And then I threw in a little, this is just a little logo. All I did was just add some graphics, some shading and stuff. Nothing fancy. So what I want to talk about as well is where to go from this. So you have some basic principles, but what do you do with it? How do you advance? In my experience, I've had to build a lot of sites from scratch with no graphic design experience. So what's the best thing that you can do is steal from other people. And by that, and so I want to bring up Twitter Bootstrap. How many people here have heard of Twitter Bootstrap? Okay, how many people here use Twitter Bootstrap? All right, don't use it. Yes. Do not use Twitter. All right? Steal from them. If you like what they did, go to their page, look up the CSS. You all have Firebug or Chrome or whatever. Look at the file, look at what they're doing, and steal from it, one item at a time. Yes.
Exactly.
All right, great. I got a fan back there. And it's the same thing with anything. Yes.
Can you outline specifically why not to use Bootstrap? I'm sure you have a specific.
Well, because you don't learn anything, and then your site just looks the same as everybody else who's copying Bootstrap.
And their elemental structure sucks.
And stuff I don't understand. What's that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
One for the header.
They have a class for a page header, and they're using HTML5. I'm not using HTML5. Don't get me started.
Yeah, okay. Classic over-engineering. You have a problem, solve it in the simplest way, and do it by stealing from other people. Last of all, so then I want to talk about the fonts I used. I used Century Gothic for the main one. I got Mission Script from losttype.com. Lost Type Co-op and League of Movable Type are two really cool font websites. Check them out. They're either free or they're pay what you will. And then lastly, Robin Williams' Design for Non-Designers. That's a book where I got these core concepts from. It's a very simple book. It's been around for over a decade. It's very short. It's written in a very easy to understand way for non-graphical people. And then, my links. So that's it. Any questions? All right. Oh.
I just have a comment. Typekit is another great one for fonts.
Great.
And they serve them up for you, and they handle across browser crap that you don't have to worry about.
Awesome.
I just want to throw a shout out to type designers. It is incredibly hard to design type. Pay them. If
All
you're
right.
not asking much, it is serious hard work to design type. Don't just use free typefaces. Use them as well, but pay the type designers.
Great. Thank you.
I'll second that book. I read it 10 years ago when it first came out, and so I would definitely recommend that. It is elemental to anyone who does any programming to learn the basics from that book.
Yeah. What about layout of elements on a page? We have to start from a blank screen and we have to start laying out elements on it.
Well, in that case, I would go with, just kind of the point of this is that I want you guys to be aware of that you do have a responsibility to design, and that's something that will reflect on you and your product. So don't be afraid to try stuff. You know, put it where it just makes sense, and if it doesn't work, you know, you can refactor it later and you can change it. Thank you very much.